Welcome to the Shootin' Show. Stand by for shots fired.
Hello, I'm Johnny Rowland, your host of the Shootin' Show, and welcome again to this week's program. We've got a beautiful day to be out here shooting. It is somewhat windy, so please forgive us if we have a little wind noise on our audio, but it is still a great day to be out shooting. Well, friends, we're so happy to have each and every one of you watching. You know, there are a lot of new regulations, a lot of new talk about some of these things that the anti-gun people have planned for us, the honest citizen. And literally they want to completely disarm us, and we'll be talking about some of these things later on in the program. Now is a perfect time for you folks to join the Shootin' Show Gun Club, because we can do something about this, friends. We can stop these people if all of us work together. And again, we'll be talking more about that on the program later today. Well, we have a Ruger Super Red Hawk here, a handgun, which a lot of the anti-gun people call an inaccurate and useless tool. Well, I think they're terribly mistaken there. You know, here we have people that don't know anything at all about guns. As Jeff Cooper wrote some time ago, he calls them the rabbit people, who literally cannot imagine someone standing up for themselves, or someone defending themselves, or someone taking responsibility for their own actions. These people just can't imagine that. All they want to do is run to a hole and hide. Well, friends, that's not us, and I know it's not most of you out there who are watching this program, certainly not. You know, if someone, I think this needs to be a criteria for some of these officials that are trying to get elected, or some of these people who are in office now. If they don't believe in the principle of self-reliance and self-defense, be it with a handgun or a rifle or whatever else, if they don't believe in that, well, you know, friends, I don't think they can be trusted, because what do they believe in? If they don't believe that we're capable, they don't believe we're responsible enough to look after ourselves, you know, I have a huge problem with whatever their ethics are. So I think this needs to be examined. And I tell you the truth, I'm not going to vote for someone who is anti-gun, because we have a fundamental difference between someone who's anti-gun and most of us who watch this program, and certainly myself and Kurt. These people do not have a clue about the real world. So I think this is something we really need to start looking at on some of our elected officials around the country. Well, I think we'll take our Ruger Super Red Hawk here, and we have some water bottles out here at about 100 yards. And even with open sights, let's just see how inaccurate or accurate, in fact, this gun is. Well, it looked pretty accurate to me. Well, let's, just to prove that wasn't a fluke, let's try the other one there next to it. Now, friends, again, Mr. Average Shooter here, shooting gallon milk jugs filled with water at 100 yards. If I can do it, certainly any one of you could do it with a little bit of practice. And they say that handguns are inaccurate. Well, there's a lot of other stuff they don't know too. Now then, friends, the next gun we're going to look at today is the great Ruger Super Red Hawk in .44 Magnum. And we had opened today's program with this particular gun. And needless to say, it is a lot of handgun. Certainly one of my favorite long-range handguns that certainly that I've ever handled a fool with. For home defense or for personal defense overall, personally I prefer the .41 Magnum, like this Smith & Wesson C57. But if you want a double-action .44 Magnum and you're willing to learn to shoot the gun, you know, and I'm not saying that one cartridge, say a 41 versus a 44, I'm not saying one cartridge is better, shall we say, than the other. They're just different. The 41 is a much better defensive cartridge. It is a lot more versatile, I think, than a lot of people understand, and it's certainly one of my favorite handgun cartridges. But a lot of people, including myself, like the .44 Magnum when you really want to go on the upper end of the power scale. Now, for home defense, we recommend something like a Winchester Silvertip, which is not a full charge load, because full-powered .44 Magnums really have too much recoil, even for those of us who are experienced shooters, to really shoot as fast as, say, we would a 41 or certainly a .357. So, as a police cartridge, the 44 full power is just too much, certainly for the average person to handle. and I think we're going to finish that other part. We have that other part on today's program comparing shooting the three guns as far as speed goes. But if you want a 44 Magnum double action, the Ruger Red Hawk or Super Red Hawk is really, as far as I'm concerned, at the very top of the list, along with some other very fine handguns like the tremendous Wesson 44 Magnum, certainly the Smith & Wesson Classic Series, and the Colt Anaconda. Yes, in fact, Anaconda, that's, which is also a very nice handgun. The Rugers tend to be extremely rugged. One of the things I like about Ruger revolvers over some other revolvers, they can be field stripped, much like you would a semi-automatic handgun. It's a little bit more complicated. I wouldn't want to do it out in the brush, I don't think, in case I would lose a small part. But tell you what happened to me one time. I dropped a freshly cleaned GP100 in some sand. And out here in northwest Louisiana, we have a lot of sandy soil. And I had, like I said, had just cleaned the gun and freshly oiled it, put a light coat of oil on it like we should, and sure enough, dropped the gun in about a 3-inch pile of sand. Just one of those things that happened. Well, if I'd had another type of handgun, I would have had to have been very careful or cautious how I cleaned it. In fact, some of them I wouldn't have taken apart, but due to the nature of how these Rugers are made, I was able literally to take the gun down and get all the sand out of the working parts there and get it back together in good working order. So that's one advantage that the Ruger mechanisms do have. They're very robust. The parts are typically bigger, and most of the time they're very good shooting guns. Now you can see this gun has a lot in common with the GP100 series. In fact, a lot of the parts are interchangeable, such as the trigger and hammer, things like that. The sights appear to be the same. It's a system that Ruger started with the GP100 several years ago, and then they came along with the Super Red Hawk. Now, of course, the Red Hawk is between these two guns in size. The frame is not quite as large. You can see how the frame actually extends out and down the barrel a ways on the Super Red Hawk. And tell you the truth, I don't know if you can wear one out or not. Don't know anybody who's worn one out. I'm sure, like anything else, they probably can be, but these are really terrific guns. Also, the speed loaders that fit the Model 29 Smith & Wessons, the bore centers here in the cylinder appear to be the same, so personally I use the same speed loaders. These guns can be rapidly reloaded with speed loaders from HKS or from Safariland, and it works real well. Well, we're going to take a closer look in just a moment, but we'll compare it also to the Super Black Hawk, and a lot of you folks know this is one of my very favorite guns. I've had this gun for a long time, and tell you the truth, they actually shoot one shoots about as well as the other one does. This Super Red Hawk, we recently put a scope on it to get as accurate a group certainly as I could see. You know, that's really the only limitation that you have with iron sights. Out at any distance, you can't precisely see a point to shoot at. Of course, these are excellent sights on this gun. As we saw earlier, it's easy to shoot, say, hit a gallon water jug, and actually a gallon jug of water is about the size of the vitals of, say, a deer. So out to 100 yards, I believe you could hunt deer with one of these with open sights if you worked with it and got pretty good at it. But with a scope, you can really tell how, just in fact, what the gun will do. Well, we got a 5-shot group down to 3.6 inches, which I thought was good. That's about as well as probably I can shoot a handgun anyway. About 3.5 or so inches at 100 yards. We thought that was excellent performance. Well, the Super Black Hawk will do just about the same thing. Both these guns will group into about an inch at 25 yards with open sights, inch and a half, certainly with most ammunition. So it just depends. They're about the same size. The Super Red Hawk is a little heavier than the Super Black Hawk. It's just bigger. The frame is bigger, and the barrel is of greater thickness. But tell you the truth, as far as velocities goes, there's not a dime's worth of difference in the performance of these two guns. Truthfully, in the higher powered cartridges, the Super Black Hawk is not going to hit you as hard with recoil, and we'll do something with that in just a moment to show. But the only thing about a heavy double action revolver, you have this hump back here on the back of the grip, and it can't ride up in your hand, so your hand's going to soak up all that recoil when you shoot these guns. And really, with lower powered ammunition, or for say 44 specials, you can shoot the double action much faster than you can a single action. But for aimed shots, when the power goes up, when you get into the full charge 44 magnums, you can shoot one about as fast as you can the other. So anyway, as I said earlier, these are such strong and durable, well-made guns. There are a number of gunsmiths around the country who are doing special things, putting special barrels on these guns that really show just what, in fact, the mechanism itself can do. I think we showed some things recently. If my mind can recollect there, J.D. Jones has a real nice package that he does called the Beauty and Beast on these particular Super Red Hawk guns. They really are excellent hunting handguns, and if you want one of these for home defense, and a lot of us are concerned about that now, as I keep talking about, I would suggest downloading shooting 44 specials, or shooting Winchester silver tips, or certainly Glazer safety slugs. You have a tremendous amount of power. The bullet's not going to go through a number of walls and injure someone else in your household. So that is certainly an option that you have. You know, one of the things this someone in government has suggested is safer bullets. She wanted to do away with the hollow point, not understanding, again, we have people here that don't have a clue what they're talking about. A hollow point bullet is a much safer bullet, say, than a solid bullet, because what will happen, it is much more likely to expend its energy in the target, whereas a solid point bullet, especially from a Magnum handgun, is going to go through a lot of different types of media. It'll go through multiple walls. I, some time ago, as an experiment, shot a 44 Magnum, a hard cast lead bullet at a full charge load. I shot it through a wall, and we wanted to see just what sort of penetration it would have. Well, it went through the wall of this particular that we had set up for our experiment, went through one wall, went through it. There was some brush out there, clipped 2 or 3 limbs on a little tree, and went through some brush, went into another building, and again, this was all under controlled circumstances, went through a wall on the building, went into a big wooden storage box, went in one side out the other, and it lodged in a concrete wall. So the solid bullets, that safer bullets, I don't think they, like I said, they don't know what they're talking about. The solid bullets have tremendous penetration in one of these 44 Magnums. If I was hunting grizzly bear, and I don't think I'd want to hunt grizzly or brown bear with any 44 Magnum handgun unless I was backed up by an elephant rifle, certainly. People have had really pretty good success with those solid bullets, literally drilling 44 caliber holes through whatever was being shot. Anyway, let's take a closer look at the Super Red Hawk.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station.
Hi, I'm Bob Brown, Vietnam veteran and publisher of Soldier of Fortune magazine, described by some as the most politically incorrect magazine in the United States. Every issue we publish in-depth, provocative articles by our investigative reporters on the efforts of gun-grabbing politicians and the BATF to undermine our Second Amendment rights, and what you can do to stop them. Also on-site coverage of the government's abuse of power as occurred in the Randy Weaver tragedy and the Waco fiasco. No puff, no fluff, in-depth technical reviews of new firearms and ammo. In short, hard-hitting action articles of immediate interest to all real Americans. available from no other mainstream media. You need the other side of the story. That's why I'm offering a 1-year subscription to Soldier of Fortune for only $22. That's over a 50% saving. Also, we're going to throw in a free 67-page bonus coverage of all our Waco material that's appeared in Soldier of Fortune and how it affects you. Call our 1-800 number now.
And friends, you can call our Shootin' Show 800 number. That's 1-800-895-7916. Ask for Department SOF for Soldier of Fortune, and we'll take MasterCard or Visa, check, or money order. So call us at 1-800-895-7916. Department SOF, $22 for a year of Soldier of Fortune plus the Waco supplement. It's a great bargain, friends, for a great magazine.
Now then, friends, you can tell the massive frame, and these notches here are for these Ruger rings for mounting a scope. And this front sight is interchangeable. It has a spring loaded there. You can change it. You have an option of several different sights. You see you have a button here on the side that releases the cylinder. And the ejector pin here is not connected. It doesn't turn with the cylinder. It's typical like on the GP100 type revolver. So all parts are really massive. You have a lot of metal between the holes there. Excellent adjustable sights, a red ramp front there. And I exchanged the stock grips for these hoe grips because they're more comfortable to shoot for me. But just an excellent package. As you can see, very similar in looks and function. And like I said, a number of interchangeable parts between the GP100 here and the Super Red Hawk. It's just that the Super Red Hawk is quite a bit larger. Now then, friends, let's watch. We're going to shoot our Super Red Hawk on multiple targets here in just a moment. And let's say if you were hunting a game animal, this would be important to you because only aimed shots count, whether it's hunting a game animal or in self-defense. Only the aimed shots are the ones that count. So we're going to do something, but let me shoot it one time, get my hearing protection in real good. This is with full charge, full 44 Magnum, 240 grain jacketed hollow point loading. And watch it in my hands anyway and see what you think. A little muzzle flash. And you can see the only thing, the recoil comes back in the web of your hand. Of course, again, considering the power of the cartridge, it's not that bad on this big gun. Shoot it again. And not so bad. Now then, let's compare that. Put it down. The same ammunition with our Super Black Hawk, and watch the gun in recoil. It's going to ride up in my hand. Now, I'm not saying that one gun is better than the other because either one of them are really about as good as a 44 Magnum as money can buy at any price. However, I'm just showing the difference in the double action versus single action. Now watch the gun in recoil. See, it rolls up in the hand like so, and it's just easier to shoot with full power loads. No more accurate, but it is a little easier on your hand. Again, the great Super Black Hawk. If you want a double action revolver, certainly this is one of the very first choices, but just don't think that the single action in the heavier calibers is outmoded. Let's run a little experiment briefly. Let's shoot on our 3 targets here. Let's shoot one shot on each of the 3 targets, and of course they have to be aimed shots because, as we said earlier, these are the only ones that count. I've got my timer on here, our Pro timer, and let's see for aim shots. And our light's running a little low this afternoon. Got a little front moving in, I think, but I think we'll be able to see it all right. So I'll get in a ready position, and I'll shoot 3 shots, and of course, like we said, they have to be aimed. I've got to know where that bullet's going, which we should know all the time on every gun we shoot anyway. Well, let's try that. I'll get in position here and punch our timer and get in the low ready position. Okay, yeah. Got a good hit here in the circle, a good hit here, and a good hit here. All right, that took 1.76 seconds. And again, those were all aimed shots. All right, let's take our Super Black Hawk single action, and let's do the same drill. remember, 1.76 seconds. Let's see how much difference there is on the higher powered ammunition. Watch our timer get in the low ready position. Well, again, we have 3 good solid hits here and here. How about 1.83 seconds? So the next time I did it, I might shoot the single action faster than I did the double action. There's no practical difference. And of course, the single action was easier on my hand. The single place that the double actions really shine, they are quicker, of course, to reload than the single action. Although even the loading mechanism of the single action in some circumstances can have its own advantage, but typically the double action revolvers, of course, are going to be faster to unload and to reload. But that's just something to think about. Certainly if you want a heavy handgun to hunt with, the single actions really don't give up anything as far as time to the double actions. Now friends, certainly if you want a double action large double action high-powered handgun, well, this Super Red Hawk is really about as good as it gets. It's accurate, it's rugged, it's reliable, of course all stainless steel, and for what it is, the recoil is not that horrendous. It certainly is shootable. Now then, a lot of people would think that the big single actions like the Super Black Hawk it's an antiquated mechanism. Well, it's just not. Recoil, as the higher you go in power, the more pleasant the single actions are to shoot versus the double actions. However, there are advantages to both guns. It just depends on what you want, and both of these guns are 2 that we would unequivocally or unreservedly recommend, certainly. But of course, today our feature is on the Super Red Hawk, excellent 44 Magnum double action revolver.
Well, you know, friends, some people would call a 44 Magnum revolver a cannon, but our good friend Art Alphin is about to show us a real cannon, in fact. And we're pleased to introduce Art to our tremendous numbers of new viewers, of course. Art has the great A-Square Company at One Industrial Park in Bedford, Kentucky. And, of course, they build the A-Square rifles and ammunition, some of the finest big game rifles and ammunition to be had in the world. But one of our viewers asked last week why Art was dressed in a military-type outfit. And, of course, when this tape was made, Art was still an instructor at West Point. So we're watching some of the actual military tapes that Art made for the U.S. Army at West Point. So let's see what he has to tell us today about the 12-pound Napoleon.
Field artillery in the war between the states was primarily an anti-personnel weapon. The most popular field artillery piece on both sides during the war was the 12-pound Napoleon. It was light enough to be maneuvered as a field artillery piece, yet fired full charge 12-pound ammunition. This ammunition consisted of 4 major types of projectiles. Solid or round shot was a solid iron ball. Like all other projectiles, it was attached to a wooden sabot by metal bands. The sabot improved the accuracy and served double duty by having a woolen powder bag attached to it. This meant that when loading, the powder charge, sabot, and projectile were all one piece and could be loaded with one stroke. Shell was a hollow iron ball filled with black powder and using a Borman or similar type of fuse. The fuse was a wooden plug containing a powder train in a groove. The cover was a scale graduated in seconds. The gunner estimated the range and consequent time of flight to the target and called out the number. The fuse cutter cut a hole in the fuse cover at the appropriate mark. Hopefully, the powder gases escaping past the projectile would ignite the fuse, which would burn for the required number of seconds before causing the projectile to explode. This was a very iffy thing. Problems with fuses, range estimation, and variations in muzzle velocity made it near impossible to get the projectile to explode in the right place. Spherical case was the same as shell, except that the hollow area in the shell contained a very small burster charge and a number of separate iron balls. Grape or canister shot was used on infantry at less than 400 yards. This collection of small iron balls converted the Napoleon into a giant shotgun. When the infantry closed to within 180 yards, one powder charge could be loaded with 2 containers of canister, thereby doubling the number of projectiles to 24 pounds. Explosive shell and spherical case had little bursting power and were unreliable. The preferred rounds were solid shot and canister. We will demonstrate how to load using this 6-pounder, which has been re-rifled on the James principle. After the shot, the number 3 closed off the touch hole or vent with a padded leather glove called a thumb stall. Number 1 dipped the sponge end of his rammer into a water bucket and swabbed the bore in order to extinguish any sparks remaining from the previous shot. Number 2 received the new projectile powder combination from the powder monkey and placed it at the muzzle. Number 1 reversed his rammer and rammed the cartridge home. Number 3 then removed the thumb stall from the vent and, using a vent prick, cut open the cartridge in the bore. Number 4 placed the friction primer in the vent and took the slack out of the lanyard. At any time during this process, the gunner aimed the weapon. For elevation changes, he used the hand screw mounted underneath the breech, while deflection changes were made by physically moving the trail left and right. Upon command, number 4 would give a final pull on the lanyard. The friction primer acted like a giant kitchen match and set off the propelling charge. As the gun rolled back 6 to 12 feet in recoil, the crew members seized the carriage and rolled it forward to approximately the same starting position. You may ask about rifled field artillery, but it was not that effective. Though it was more accurate, its recoil took it out of position after every shot. Each succeeding shot was the equivalent of opening fire again. The rounds could not be walked into the target. Rifles were inefficient at handling canister shot, and their explosive projectiles had a weak burster charge and an extremely unreliable contact fuse. Since the projectiles were oblong, they normally dug deeply into the ground before explosion and had little effect. It would take more than 30 years, plus the invention of high-order explosive filler, smokeless powder, cartridge cases, breech loaders, good contact fuses, and hydro-pneumatic recoil systems before field artillery had the characteristics which you and I understand today.
The Shootin' Show will continue after this break for your local cable company or television station. You know, friends, all of us as shooting enthusiasts really should be subscribing to Shotgun News, the trading post for anything that shoots. Literally thousands of firearms bargains with 3 big issues monthly. Shotgun News, Post Office Box 669, Hastings, Nebraska. That's zip 68902. Their phone number, area 402-463-4589. For MasterCard or Visa subscriptions only, call them at 1-800-345-6923. Well, friends, we hope you're enjoying today's program. And as I said last week, if it looks like I'm promoting semi-automatic rifles, well, I am, because I think every decent American ought to be able to own a gun like this Colt Sporter, or for that matter, anything else they would like to have. The anti-gun people are making a very strong effort to take literally semi-automatic guns of all types away from us, the honest citizen. Whether it's this Colt Sporter or the Smith & Wesson Model 1006 10mm. And trust me on this one, they're not going to stop with just the military-type guns. This is not what these people have in mind. Now, we've been saying this for a long time, but it's starting to come out. Before it's over with, they're going to want anything that shoots, such as this single-action revolver, which the technology for this has been around since the 1830s. Literally, these people want to take every gun away from us, the American citizen. Tell you what, friends, we've said it before, the Second Amendment is what keeps all the other amendments in place. Because if we give up our ability and our right to defend ourselves, if we give it up to a government, and you know, do you really trust politicians? Because a lot of people think the government is this mythical, God-like entity. Well, it's not. The government is just people in offices. And it's some rules written down by people, a lot of whom we don't trust at all. You know, it's a known fact that people are going to be people, whether they're police officers or politicians. A certain percentage of them are going to be crooked. And you know, if we give up our ability to take care of ourselves, our ability to fend off criminals, to defend our homes, well, we're done for as a country. It will not be the same United States of America. It'll be something else. You know, some of these folks in Washington said recently, well, they're not socialists. Well, you know what, friends? They're not calling themselves socialists, no. But, you know, if it walks like a duck and it acts like a duck and it does everything else like a duck, well, what is it? It's a duck. And that's what these people are. They have a socialist form of government in mind for us, this New World Order, one world government. Well, we don't subscribe to that. We're Americans, and we ought to stay that way. And, friends, by retaining our firearms rights, we're going to do it. Now, this is a perfect opportunity for you to join the Shoot and Show Gun Club because, as I've said before, we have our Fun Gun Days planned for next year. We're going to be doing them in a number of regions around the country. And, friends, it is so important because what we as shooters have to do, we've got to reach all these millions of other Americans who are on the fence about gun ownership. So many people don't understand just what a semi-automatic rifle is. They don't understand the distinction between an assault gun and this Colt Sporter. Friends, this is not an assault gun. Assault guns, by definition, are selective fire weapons. They fire fully automatic or they fire semi-automatic. On a fully automatic gun, all you do is hold the trigger down and the gun continues to fire. On a semi-automatic gun, you have one firing per pull of the trigger. There is a huge difference, and these are not assault guns. Just like the SKSs from China are not assault guns. The AKs, the MAKs coming into the country now, they're not assault guns. In fact, they're excellent home defense guns. They're excellent sporting guns for that matter. Well, let me show you something that recently we picked up. In fact, it's from the December 24th. I put our Colt Sporter down. From the December 24th Dallas Morning News. And this is an article we happened to find in the paper. And this article was supplied to them by Handgun Control. And let me just read a couple of things that it says here. It says, what's next in gun control? And these are proposals expected to be debated in Congress in early 1994. Now, these are some of the things we're up against. It says they're going to license, or they want to license handgun owners. Gun buyers would have to be 21, prove residency, go through a background check, complete a safety course, show proof of liability insurance, and pay a fee. Such a bill would also institute a 7-day cooling off period before the delivery of a handgun. Another one, it says here, limit number of guns owned. It says a federal arsenal license would be required for ownership of more than 20 guns or 1,000 rounds of ammunition. Well, you know what, friends? you can buy a couple of bricks of 22 long rifle ammunition, and you can have 1,000 rounds. Well, you might have to have a federal license to go and get, if you got any substantial amount of even 22 long rifle ammunition. Nobody really knows. And those of us that like to compete in USPSA, the action shooting sports, well, some of these fellows will shoot 1,000 rounds of ammunition in a weekend of practice. That's nothing unusual at all. So they say they also want to ban assault weapons, again, which we haven't been able to own assault type weapons without long drawn out federal procedure anyway. None of us civilians out here really have assault guns. They're talking about these Colt Sporters and things like that. It says here, such weapons would be defined as military style rifles or handguns, usually modified for civilian sale, that are semi-automatic, except a high capacity, it says more than 5 rounds for a rifle, a detachable magazine, and are characterized by combat-oriented features. Well, the combat-oriented features make these guns more rugged and durable, and how about easier to clean and take care of. They're simpler to make. So we have a definite disparity in opinion of what combat features would be. It also, it says here, it would grandfather currently owned guns. We don't know if they're going to do that or not. They may want to come around and take them up, like some of these people have said. Another thing here talks about restricting gun sellers. This measure would establish a $1,000 annual dealer fee, which is now $10 a year for an FFL license, a federal firearms license. It said it would prohibit sales of more than one handgun per month to any person and require sellers to carry liability insurance, which would mean if someone bought a gun from a gun store and went out and misused it, or someone stole it and misused it, then they'd come back and sue the individual who sold the gun. It's outrageous. That's like buying a car from a car dealer and someone wrecks it and they come back and sue the dealership. That's ridiculous. They also want to raise gun and ammunition taxes. The 10% federal tax on guns and 11% tax on ammunition will jump to a 30% tax on guns and a 50% tax on ammunition. Now, these are just some of the things that these folks have in mind, friends. It has got to be stopped. We cannot allow people who literally know nothing about these guns, know nothing about us as decent citizens, and don't care. You know, a lot of the congressmen have bodyguards. They have, in fact, the U.S. Congress and the President, all these people in government in Washington have their own quasi-military force to protect them. Well, what about those of us out here in the hinterlands, out here in mid-America and everywhere else, who cannot afford to hire bodyguards? And you know, I find it interesting, these people who are guarding these officials, they all carry guns. I don't understand. See, if they want to take the guns away from us, why would they want their bodyguards to carry guns? It's just outrageous. You know, I heard something today that I thought was so good. Walter Williams, who is a professor at George Mason University, was sitting in for Rush Limbaugh on his program today, and he talked about the anti-gun people. It's just like, he said, first of all, you have to know how to cook a frog. You know, friends, if you take a frog and you have a boiling pot of water and you put the frog in it, the frog's reflexes are so quick that the frog can jump out of the pot and get away. Okay, so what you have to do, you start the frog off in a cool pan of water and gradually raise the heat. Well, by the time the frog realizes that he's being cooked, it's too late for him to do anything about it. So that's what's happening to us as gun owners. They're taking our rights away little by little, and before we know it, these guns are all going to be gone. Suddenly, all the firearms are going to be in the hands of the government. Well, wait a minute, friends. If the government doesn't trust me to have a firearm, no matter what it is, if they don't trust me to have a firearm, guns that we've had for many, many years, well, I don't believe I trust the government. So what we have to do, we've got to write our senators, we've got to write to our congressmen, and we've got to stand up. We've got to take a stand in local elections, and we need to take that criteria. Well, are these people anti-gun, or what is their position? Because, friends, if we don't, we're not going to have any guns left. America is not going to be the same country. The Bill of Rights won't be worth 10 cents. So, friends, please join the Shootin' Show Gun Club today, because you're helping us on the show here. You're helping us reach more and more people, and also you're going to help us in the next year. We're going to have our fun gun days all over different regions of the country, and we're going to show a lot of people who have bought guns how they work safely, how to safeguard guns around children, how to keep them safely in their home and deal with them. So, friends, it is so important. We don't know how much time we have left. These anti-gun types who don't care about us as individuals have got to be stopped, and this is one way we can darn sure do it. So come on, join today.
We will watch a genuine 12-pound Napoleon being fired with solid shot and canister shot against formations of silhouette targets. We will be loading slowly and out of sequence, and we'll be using a separate powder bag of aluminum foil in order to reduce the possibility of a premature discharge. To reduce chance of misfire, the number 3 man will put priming powder down the vent before the friction primer is inserted. Infantry 400! Prime! Fire! Dean, man. Prime! Fire! Infantry 240! Too much. Prime! Fire! Prime! Fire! Prime! Fire! I am sure you expected the canister shot to be impressive, but the round shot was surprising. They bounced through the formation like a bowling ball gone berserk. Every strike upon the ground and every impact with a target created secondary projectiles which traveled through the target area at odd angles. Wartime stories of round shot hurling rifled muskets, canteens, and pieces of bodies as secondary projectiles are true. One can only imagine what it must have looked like when a battery of 6 of these were on line firing at maximum rate. During the war, maximum rate for these weapons was 4 rounds per minute. This is faster than we were firing since we put a premium on safety and intentionally went slowly. By calculating the rate of advance of infantry using Hardee's manual and comparing this to the rate of fire, we find that an infantry unit attacking a Napoleon field piece from 1,500 yards out would, by the time they arrived at the gun, receive 676 pounds of round shot and canister from that single field piece alone. This brings up two important side points: Gatling guns and leadership. The Gatling gun of the war between the states was the size of this field piece, yet its combat range was exactly the same as the rifled musket. Since cartridge cases were not yet practical, Gatling gun crews had to load and prime steel sleeves as if those sleeves were .58 caliber rifled muskets. These sleeves were then fed into the gun as ammunition. After every couple of hundred rounds, they had to cease fire to reload the sleeves and clean out the vast quantities of powder fouling which escaped past the gap between sleeve and barrel. No one in his right mind would pick a Gatling gun over any smoothbore field piece. With Napoleon's belching death, why did men go forward? They were led from the front. During the war between the states, over 160 general officers from both sides were killed. All but one or two were killed leading their men in battle from the front. This is far in excess of all general officer casualties of the United States in all other wars combined. Despite the death and destruction, soldiers of both sides went forward to their job. At the Battle of Newmarket, for example, the Corps of Cadets from the Virginia Military Institute went on line near the Bushong House and charged. They crossed this field from the Bushong House to where you are standing, approximately 600 yards, and the location of a federal battery. They not only seized the battery, they actually broke the Union line asunder, putting it to flight. The price they paid for moving across that short space of ground, some of which was dead space in which they were protected from fire, was 10 dead and 45 wounded out of 222 total engaged. I have some recovered targets. These shot with canister shot. And these hit with round shot. When you study the war, remember these targets and the range film. They will give you a new dimension on the peculiar problems of that war and the courage of the troops involved. Was the 12-pound Napoleon effective? Yes. Its canister at close range and round shot at long range was deadly. You can imagine what would happen to soldiers hit with the round shot as these targets were hit.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or television station. friends, if you like guns and shooting and you like to read about guns and shooting, well, pick up a copy of Shooting Times magazine. They have all sorts of features on handguns, rifles, shotguns, and black powder by some of your favorite gun writers. For subscription information, call them at 1-800-727-4353. Again, 1-800-727-4353. Shooting Times, the best there is. Now, friends, on last week's program, we were comparing shooting the three most popular magnums, the .357, the .41, and .44, and we're going to continue with that this week.
You know, friends, it's a terrible thing that many of us are going through in some areas of the country. Crime has really gotten out of control in so many instances, but you know what you can do? You can be prepared to defend yourself, your home, and your family. So what we're going to do is we're going to shoot 2 shots on multiple targets. And for a police officer or a security guard, or today even the homeowner, you're facing a situation where you may not have just one adversary. You may have 2 or 3 or who knows how many. But let me tell you what, if the good news is if a couple of the individuals who are attacking you are hurt, I believe most of them the rest of them are going to run off. That's what I understand from some people who've been in situations like that. So it's a terrible thing that we're undergoing in our society, and the last thing in the world that anybody with half a brain would think of would be to disarm the decent people, the honest citizens. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our .357 and compare it to the .41 and .44. Same drill. We're going to shot here, shot here, shot here, shot here. Let's compare the 3 different guns and calibers. Okay, we have some pretty good hits here. I blew off one of the pieces of tape. Pretty good hits here. 1.44 seconds. All right, friends, we took 1.44 seconds with a .357 Magnum. Let's try the same drill with our .41 Magnum. And again, we're using full powered ammunition. Punch our timer, get in position. Okay, again, that muzzle blast is pretty tough. 1.46 seconds. So realize here, we're talking about a 50% increase in power, but it only took 0.02 of a second longer. And of course, we have some good hits. This one over here, too, in the same hole. Again, just making a point about the .41 Magnum is so close as far as shootability to a .357, but you've got a dramatic increase in power. Well, let's go on to the next step, and let's shoot our .44 Magnum. I'll just holster this for now. Now, friends, judging from the last thing we did with the Super Red Hawk, we'll probably blow our paper off our targets, but you know, this has been a very popular feature on our program from so many viewers, because this is something that a lot of people haven't done. They really haven't put a stopwatch to it. And now that people are having to think about self-defense, home defense, that gives you an idea of what you're dealing with. So many people go down to a gun shop and they buy a gun, they buy a box of shells, and they say, well, it's supposed to work, huh? But they really don't know the difficulty of time or shooting or just what they'll do. So I suppose that's why it's been so popular on our program. All right, let's take our .44 Magnum, and our .41 Magnum was 1.46 seconds. Well, let's see how fast I can go with this full charge .44 Magnum. Punch our timer. Woo! Yeah, it stings. 1.52 seconds. So again, we're seeing a little more difference between the .41 and .44 as far as time goes. And the .41 didn't hurt my hand, and you rapid fire a double action .44 Magnum, and it's going to sting every time. At least it does for me. But anyway, you see, you are dealing with more power certainly than a .41, but you've also slowed down some. So that little illustration there, again, just showing you how the 3 Magnums stack up as far as shootability against each other. Truthfully, they're all about as accurate as each other. But as I've said many times before, personally, my own choice, and if I could have only one handgun, I believe it would be the 41 Magnum because it does everything so well. Now, friends, there aren't a lot of these guns out there. They're getting a little bit hard to find, so I would certainly make an effort because the 41 is such a neat cartridge, so often overlooked. And these are such terrific guns. The 657 from Smith & Wesson is just such a nice, carryable, shootable package. So anyway, heck, I don't care. Just if you have a gun you like to shoot, get whatever you want. But this is one of our best recommendations.
Hi, I'm Bob Brown, Vietnam veteran and publisher of Soldier of Fortune magazine, described by some as the most politically incorrect magazine in the United States. Every issue we publish in-depth, provocative articles by our investigative reporters on the efforts of gun-grabbing politicians and the BATF to undermine our Second Amendment rights, and what you can do to stop them. Also on-site coverage of the government's abuse of power as occurred in the Randy Weaver tragedy and the Waco fiasco. No puff, no fluff, in-depth technical reviews of new firearms and ammo. In short, hard-hitting action articles of immediate interest to all real Americans, available from no other mainstream media. You need the other side of the story. That's why I'm offering a one-year subscription to Soldier of Fortune for only $22. That's over a 50% saving. Also, we're going to throw in a free 67-page bonus coverage of all our Waco material that's appeared in Soldier of Fortune and how it affects you. Call our 1-800 number now.
And friends, you can call our Shootin' Show 800 number. That's 1-800-895-7916. Ask for Department SOF for Soldier of Fortune, and we'll take MasterCard or Visa, check, or money order. So call us at 1-800-895-7916. Department SOF, $22 for a year of Soldier of Fortune plus the Waco supplement. It's a great bargain, friends, for a great magazine. You know, friends, there are times when we can't have our firearms with us. And here's something that's been very popular among our viewers. This is a personal alarm, and we got this one from On Target Enterprises. And our limiters won't let you see or hear just how loud these things are, but they're wonderful for attracting attention. Of course, you pull the pin, or this particular one has a side switch there. Another alternative is pepper spray, and this is 13% capsicum, very, very potent pepper spray, spray that could be so beneficial to a lot of us. For their address and phone number, it's On Target Enterprises, Post Office Box 372, Harrisburg, North Carolina, 28075. What you need to do is call them for a list of their products, area 704-785-9567. Well, friends, we've run out of time again today. Let me mention something to you. If you'd like information on next year's Soldier of Fortune convention, call us on our 800 number and leave your name and address, and we'll get that information to you. And also, now this will be for our Thursday night satellite broadcast. You might make a note of this. Starting January 27, we're going to move transponders or move channels on Galaxy 4. And this is just for the Thursday night satellite broadcast. We're moving from channel 23 to channel 7. We'll be on Galaxy 4 channel 7 starting January 27. And we'll be announcing this the next few weeks, certainly. Well, thanks so much for watching our Shootin' Show this week, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week on another Shootin' Show.